Let's get right into it. Number 7. The Iron Maiden. Imagine a medieval torture chamber, stone walls, flickering torches, some guy in a hood who definitely skipped dental hygiene, and, standing in the corner, a giant spiky coffin. That's the Iron Maiden, one of history's most famous punishments. Except here's the plot twist. Historians think it might have been more of a horror movie prop than a real punishment. Yep, people hyped it up so much that it became torture's Beyoncé, even though the evidence that anyone was actually spiked to death inside one is, well, sketchy. But let's assume for a second that this thing was real. Picture being shoved into a coffin lined with sharp iron spikes, with just enough space so they don't pierce your vital organs immediately. Instead, they stab you in non-lethal but extremely painful spots, like your arms, legs, and, lucky you, probably your face. You'd bleed slowly, stuck in complete darkness, with no way to move without driving the spikes deeper. Basically, it was the medieval version of being stuck on hold with your internet provider, but with more stabbing and less hold music. The real creep factor isn't whether it was used or not, it's the fact that people wanted it to exist. Museums in the 18th and 19th centuries proudly displayed Iron Maidens as symbols of medieval cruelty, even when they were basically Frankenstein mashups of random spiky parts. Humanity collectively said, yeah, that looks terrifying. Let's believe it was real, which says a lot about how much people in history loved the idea of over-the-top punishments, even if they had to make some up. So the Iron Maiden might be more urban legend than torture device, but it still gets the crown for disturbing vibes alone. Number 6. Scaphism. Here's how it worked. They'd trap you between two hollowed-out logs, basically making a human sandwich, with just your head, arms, and legs sticking out. Then they'd force-feed you milk and honey until you had, let's just say, violent digestive consequences. Next, they smeared your entire exposed body with honey and left you floating in a stagnant pond or swamp. Cue the insects, flies, wasps, ants, you name it, crawled all over you, drawn in by the sugar buffet. Meanwhile, your digestive system was betraying you from the inside out. Death didn't come quick, it could take days. The combination of dehydration, infection, and bugs literally eating you alive made this one of the slowest, most excruciating punishments ever devised. The worst part? This wasn't just about killing you, it was about humiliation. You weren't just executed, you were turned into a full-course meal for the natural world. It's the kind of punishment that feels like the product of a brainstorming session where someone went, okay, but how can we make this way grosser? Basically, Scaphism was the human version of being left outside overnight with a mosquito problem, except instead of itchy bites, you're never coming back. Number 5. The breaking wheel. Imagine rolling down a hill and breaking your leg. Now imagine that was the plan. The breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel, was basically a giant wooden wagon wheel used to turn people into human pretzels. Criminals would be tied to it, arms and legs spread out, and then, here's the fun part, the executioner smashed their limbs with an iron bar. Not enough to kill instantly. Oh no, that would be merciful. The goal was to shatter bones one by one, leaving you alive but floppy, like a broken action figure. Once your skeleton resembled a pile of Jenga blocks, you'd be woven into the spokes of the wheel and left out for everyone to see. Sometimes they'd even prop the wheel up on a pole, so the townsfolk could get a nice view of your mangled body slowly dying over hours, or even days. Yep, medieval Europe didn't exactly do subtle. It gets worse. Sometimes executioners were merciful and aimed a final blow to the chest or neck. Other times, they let you die of shock, dehydration, or birds picking at you. Imagine lying there, broken into a pretzel, while crows are like, hey, free snack. So, in short, the breaking wheel was less of a punishment and more of a medieval art installation, designed to scream, don't commit crimes, or you'll end up as a lawn ornament. Number 4. The Brazen Bull. Now for some fiery creativity. Ancient Greece gave us philosophy, geometry, and, oh yeah, the Brazen Bull, a hollow bronze statue shaped like a bull, big enough to fit a person inside. And what do you do with a bronze cow? Well, if you're a tyrant, you light a fire underneath it and roast someone alive. But wait, it gets even creepier. This wasn't just a big oven, it was designed for theatrics. The bull's head had a system of tubes and whistles so that when the victim screamed inside, the sound would echo out as if the bull were roaring. That's right, someone invented death by bronze barbecue with surround sound effects. The inventor, a guy named Perilos, proudly showed off his design to the tyrant Phalaris. Phalaris was impressed, so impressed that he decided to test it out on Perilos himself. Spoiler, the guy who invented the torture device ended up as its first user. Talk about instant karma. The Brazen Bull checks every box, horrifyingly creative, cruelly theatrical, and disturbingly efficient. It was basically the ancient world's idea of dinner theater, except you were the dinner. Number 3. Scaphism. This one sounds like a spa treatment, but trust me, it's the exact opposite of relaxing. Scaphism, also called the boats, was a Persian invention, and it's basically nature's slowest, most disgusting punishment. Here's how it worked. The victim was trapped between two hollowed-out boats, with just their head, hands, and feet sticking out. Then they were force-fed milk and honey until they, well, couldn't hold it in anymore. Yes, bathroom emergencies were part of the punishment. After that, the executioners smeared the victim's exposed skin with more honey and left them floating on a swamp or stagnant pond, which meant bugs, so many bugs, flies, wasps, mosquitoes, ants, you name it, they were all invited to the buffet. The insects would bite, sting, crawl into every available opening, and eventually, well, set up camp inside. You didn't die instantly. Oh no, Scaphism was a marathon. Victims could last for days, even weeks, slowly eaten alive by insects while also rotting from the inside because of the milk and honey diet. It was like being turned into a human compost pile. The point wasn't just execution, it was humiliation and horror. Imagine being stuck, helpless, watching the sun rise and set, while nature casually dismantled you piece by piece. Forget death by chocolate. This was death by honey, and it's as awful as it sounds. Number 2, sawing in half. Magicians like to make this trick look fun. Put someone in a box, saw through them. Ta-da, they're fine. Except in history, it wasn't an illusion. Real sawing executions were common in parts of Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, and there was nothing fun about it. The victim would be hung upside down, legs spread apart, and a large saw would be used to cut right down the middle. Why upside down? 2 reasons. Gravity helped keep the person conscious longer, and all the blood rushed to the brain, so you didn't pass out immediately. That means the unlucky victim stayed awake through a lot of it. And because executioners loved efficiency, this wasn't always a quick slice all the way through. Sometimes they'd stop midway, just to let you think about your life choices while dangling upside down and half-sawed. This punishment was all about spectacle. Crowds would gather, because apparently nothing said family outing in the 1500s like watching a guy get turned into firewood. It was part public warning, part theater, part nightmare fuel. So the next time a magician pulls off the saw trick on stage, just remember, that illusion comes from a very, very real place in human history, and it's way bloodier than a deck of cards. Number 1, the Brazen Bull. Picture this, an ancient Greek inventor named Perillos shows up to pitch his brilliant new idea to a tyrant named Phalaris. It's a giant hollow bronze statue shaped like a bull. Sounds impressive, right? But instead of being a work of art, it was basically the world's worst barbecue grill. Here's how it worked. Victims were locked inside the hollow belly of the bull, and a fire was lit underneath. The metal would heat up until it was glowing, slowly roasting the person alive. And because humans are inventive in the worst ways possible, the bull wasn't just for killing, it was designed for entertainment. The head of the statue had a system of pipes and tubes that transformed the screams of the victim into something resembling the sound of a bull's roar. So instead of raw agony, the crowd got a creepy, distorted performance. In other words, it turned suffering into surround sound theater. Oh, and here's the dark twist. Perillos, the guy who invented it, was apparently the first person to test it out. The tyrant wanted to hear how the screams sounded, so he locked Perillos inside. Allegedly, he let him out before he died, only to execute him later anyway. Imagine creating something so terrible that even your boss, a notorious tyrant, thought you deserved a turn inside it. The Brazen Bull became a symbol of cruelty so extreme it almost sounds made up, like a bad horror movie prop. But no, this was real, and it set the standard for creative punishment for centuries. So, yeah, forget scary movies. Humans have already written, directed, and starred in the most horrifying torture shows imaginable, and they didn't even need special effects. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.